Hi everybody, it's Shelly at RX Vegan, and I'm excited because today I'm going to show you my favorite chocolate cake recipe, and it's one I'm recommending that you make for Valentine's Day for your sweetheart, your family, or your best friend, whoever you're going to celebrate Valentine's Day with. Anyway, let's get started. So this is a little bit of a different cake, and I want to make a shout out to my brother-in-law Ron, who actually found this recipe, or a version of this recipe, back when I was living in Texas 16 years ago. And he found it, and it was a Hershey's chocolate recipe, and it became a family favorite before we were vegans. And after I became vegan, I was trying to develop a cake recipe, and I was having a really hard time. And I decided that, you know what, I'm going to veganize that Hershey's chocolate cake recipe and see what happens. And so I worked at it and made some substantial changes, but basically you'll see it's a little bit of a different take on a chocolate cake, and I kept this concept. So I'm going to describe to you how to make it, and I also want to mention that my friend Ronnie is doing the videoing today, so thanks Ronnie for that. Okay, let's get started. First of all, I use a whole wheat pastry flour. I'm not going to give you the exact amounts because I'm going to have the recipe available for you on the Facebook page and on the website eventually. So we'll start by putting all the dry ingredients into my mixer. And this is a bit different. We're even putting the sugar in with the dry ingredients. As you guys cake makers know, or even bakers know, typically you actually blend, you will whip up the sugar with a fat in order to dissolve it. And in this case, we're going to be adding, believe it or not, boiling water towards the end of the whole process, and that's going to dissolve the sugar. Okay, and then what I have in this bowl is the baking soda, baking powder, and salt, and that's going to go in. And then, of course, the cocoa. It's not Hershey's. I have an organic fair trade cocoa that I'm using. Just use the best quality you can possibly get your hands on, because that makes a huge difference. We put that in. And that's good for dry. We're just going to mix the dry for a second. So it's all blended up. And then we're going to start adding we're going to add all the liquid ingredients together. As everybody knows, I'm not going to use eggs, of course. I'm going to use a vegan flax egg. And that's 1 tablespoon of ground flax with 3 tablespoons of water. There are 2 flax eggs in this recipe. We're just going to put these all these wet ingredients into a bowl and mix them up, and then we're going to add them to the dry. That is pumpkin. I added some pumpkin. That's a change from the recipe, because I find adding a pureed fruit, pumpkin, sweet potato, squash, it adds a depth and complexity to chocolate cakes that really make a difference. Because I don't use much oil at all. I just added the little bit of oil I use an olive oil for that. And the other thing I'm going to be adding is almond milk to the liquid ingredients. And then, of course, one of my very favorite ingredients, vanilla. I buy the best possible vanilla I can afford, and it makes a huge difference. So we're going to do 2 teaspoons of vanilla in this baby. We're going to mix this up, and then we're going to add it to, I'm just going to whisk it so it's nicely blended together. And we're going to add it to the dry ingredients, and then we're going to mix that for 2 minutes. The next step for our vegan chocolate cake that you can make for Valentine's Day is the batter is done, and it's been beaten for 2 minutes. So I stopped at 1, scraped it down, and continued beating it. But what I'm going to do now is this kind of unusual step. I'm going to add boiling water, and I'm actually going to add a tablespoon of espresso powder. I find that makes it gives beautiful depth to the flavor. So I'm going to put the espresso right into the boiling water and let it mix up, or let it dissolve for a second, and then I'm going to add the boiling water to the mixture, and then just be really careful with this because you clearly don't want to turn it on high and get burned. So we're just going to go really, really low and mix that together. I only do it for a couple of seconds, and then I typically will take this off and scrape down my beater, and I'll sort of mix the rest of it by hand. You can see it's a very liquidy batter. Don't be afraid by that, it's okay. And I have my pans already prepared. Let's get this out of the way. Here's my chicken scratch for my recipe that I've been developing, and I'll have a good copy or a good recipe format for you online for this, though. I'm working on that. Okay, so then we're just going to pour the batter into the pans in equal amounts, as equal as you can. A little more in here. And after we have these already, I have my oven at 350. I'll be popping them in the oven, and they cook for about 30 minutes. Keep checking them. Use a toothpick or whatever tester you use to see that your cakes are done. And that's it. It's as simple as that. Okay, yeah, so I'm gonna pop these guys in the oven, and then I'm going to, the next step after it's cooked will be icing the cake and decorating for Valentine's Day. Hey everybody, we're ready to ice the cake. The 2 chocolate cakes came out of the oven, and they look great, they taste great, they smell amazing. I wish you could smell it in here. I went ahead and made the icing. I'll just take you a quick trip through how we did it. Just a really standard sort of butter icing, except of course we use Earth Balance instead of butter, and instead of milk we use almond milk, and again, really great vanilla. And I just mixed it up. I'm making it a chocolate icing. It's already made, and I'm just going to show you what it looks like right there. And we're just going to start icing the cake, and then we're going to just do a nice red. I made an extra batch of icing that I colored red, and we're just going to do a nice big red heart for our Valentine on the cake. Let me just start icing. I'm going to put it in the middle of the cake, put a nice amount in the middle. It's nice and creamy. I've tasted it. You can probably see I've actually got red teeth from tasting the red icing that I made, because you want to make sure your icing tastes good, that's for sure. I like a decent amount in the middle of the cake so it gives a nice flavor when you're getting your layers. Okay, and that's good. And I'm going to finish that, and we're going to be right back with the final cake finished. And here we are ready for a taste test. The cake's iced. I've used some strawberries and some rice whip to garnish it with a little bit of icing sugar on the garnish, and I am going to give it a taste now. So good. Thanks for joining me at RX Vegan. I hope you and your Valentine enjoy my vegan chocolate cake. I'm Shelley, and I want to wish you a happy vegan Valentine's Day. See you soon.